So a while back, I did a video on the preferences model of Congress, which is Keith Kriebel's pivotal politics work. I didn't do any examples in that video, so I thought, oh, why don't we do a video with some examples? So I'm gonna draw a line. Good way to start. Okay. And on this line, let's just put median voter right here. Well, let's actually not even use. Well, we won't use lines. We'll use arrows. So here's median voter, M. So if you're familiar, with say the median voter theorem, you might think, oh, okay, the median voter has his or her way. That's where it falls. In elections, that's where it falls. Where the median voter goes, that's who wins the election. But in pivotal politics, it's actually not so much the median voter that matters as it is the pivots. So we're going to be focusing on the United States Congress, or United States Senate specifically. So we need to consider what the pivots are in that body. So in other words, we have to worry about, I'm going to write them down here. We have to worry about the filibuster pivot, the presidential veto, and the override pivot. So let's call them, well, okay, PF for the pivot that's the filibuster pivot. TV, that's Trump veto, just because Trump's the current president. I don't want to use P again, except P again here. And the pivot for the presidential override. So that's PO, presidential override, or pivot for override. Now, if you remember basic civics, I hope you do, 60 votes to kill a filibuster, and 2/3, or 66 in the Senate, 66 votes to override a presidential veto. Okay, so let's draw our status quo. We'll say our status quo, and obviously we will move these around a bit. But we'll start out and we'll say our status quo is kind of there to the left. Let's make this somewhat representative of the current legislative arena. So we're going to put the president's ideal point here. Well, we'll just say T for Trump. We won't even say veto. We'll just say T for Trump. So that's the median. Where's the 60th member? 60th members to the left of the median. I guess you could say really the 60th members, depends on which direction. We're going to say, okay, the 60th members to the left, that's the direction we're going to focus on. So this is the PF. That's for the filibuster pivot. And then the other pivot is the EO. So that's the presidential override. So in other words, this area here, PF, that's the 60th member. You could say the 60th most conservative member. Out here is the most conservative member. Over here is the most liberal member. PF is the 60th most liberal, or the 40th most, I'm sorry, 60th most conservative or 40th most liberal. PO, that's the 66th. And then we can ask ourselves, all right, what happens if the median voter proposes the status quo? Well, without measuring it officially, it sure looks like status quo is closer to the PF than the PF is to the median voter. So if the median voter proposes his or her ideal point, the filibuster pivot's going to look at it. I'm going to look at the status quo and say, I prefer the status quo, so I'm going to filibuster. All right. So you can't propose the status quo in this case, or I'm sorry, you can't propose the median voter ideal point. It won't get through. You'll lose. But can the median voter do anything? Can they improve their stake? Well, let's consider, the space from here to here. Well, That's about what this will draw very well. Um, about this much. Well, what if we just say, well, we'll take something that is just closer to PF, but on the other side than the status quo is. And let's just say for the heck of it, we're not being totally formal here. It's right here. Well, what that means is the median voter doesn't quite get their way, but they come, kind of close. This is just closer to the filibuster pivot than the status quo is. So the filibuster pivot, okay, I'll go with it. Now, is this closer to the president than status quo? The answer is yes. So the president signs it into office. Clearly, this here, this line is closer to T than status quo is to T. Okay. So that solves that. What if we had a different scenario though? What if the president, what if Hillary Clinton had been elected instead, and instead of having T, we have, well, let's draw Hillary in where I think she probably would be, which is about right here. Okay. And let's say that nothing else changes. We just get, instead of Donald Trump being around here, we get Hillary Clinton around here. Okay. So again, the median voter would like to have something closer to them than the status quo. Status quo is pretty far away from them, relatively speaking. What if they propose that same legislation that I just deleted? We'll restore it. Well, once again, the filibuster pivot person is okay with it. It's just closer to them than the status quo is, so they sign off on it. But clearly, the status quo is closer to Hillary Clinton than this other bill is. This other bill is clearly farther away than the status quo, which is going to overturn it. And so it goes back. Can you overturn the veto? No way, because here's what you would need to overturn the veto. Well, that person's to the left of Hillary Clinton. If Hillary Clinton's not on board with it, clearly this other person's not going to be on board with it. So therefore, the bill dies. Okay. What if the status quo was? What if the status quo instead was in a much different place? What if the status quo was over here? Well, this one's actually a lot easier, and it's not going to be this. The median voter can have their way. The median voter can propose exactly their ideal point. It's closer to, I don't know why that drew it that way. Um, it is closer to, well, we can't draw it, whatever. It's closer to the filibuster pivot than the status quo is. So they're going to go with it. It's closer to the president than the status quo. They're going to go with it. So it gets passed through the Senate, it gets signed into office. In truth, any bill in this scenario, any current bill, any status quo that is to the right of the median voter can be replaced with the median voter's ideal point. That's a given in this configuration, and you could flip it on its axis and get a similar story for the other side. Um, let's do something else. What if the status quo is way over here? Well, then what's going to happen is the median voter has to get just closer to the president than the status quo is. Now that's pretty darn easy. As a matter of fact, that might be the median voter's ideal point. Might be closer to Hillary Clinton than the status quo in this scenario. The more that this moves inward toward the center, however, the more the median voter has to give up. The further left in this case, the median voter has to propose because the median voter has to get their thing just closer to Hillary Clinton here than the status quo would be. So that's a couple of different configurations and examples of how the pivotal politics model would say it's going to play out. It's pretty cool because you can actually reason with it. No advanced mathematics, just core reasoning will get you to the answer for any configuration.